gonna swing on me? I ain't did nothing to that man, bro.
Atlanta's nightlife is no stranger to drama. But what unfolded last night was so intense that even the most experienced partygoers were left speechless. It was one of those nights when the city's most exclusive nightclub felt absolutely electric. The music was blasting, the lights were flashing, and the room was filled with everyone from celebrities to influencers, and everyone in between. Most people came to relax, dance, and enjoy the night, but for three well-known faces, there was unfinished business, and it was about to get ugly. The VIP section, usually full of excitement, was unusually quiet. Kirk Frost and young Jock, two prominent figures in the city, weren't their usual animated selves.
I just had to cool off, right? Just get my mind right, man, you know. But I really gotta get this off my chest, man.
Dressed to impress, they sat together in a corner booth like kings surveying their domain, but something felt off. They weren't sipping their drinks casually or laughing with the crowd like everyone else. Their drinks sat untouched as their eyes kept scanning the room, and it was clear they weren't there to party. Jock leaned in and whispered something to Kirk, who barely nodded, keeping his gaze fixed on the center of the dance floor. To the average clubgoer, they might have seemed calm and composed, but their body language told a different story. As people around them danced and celebrated, Kirk and Jock were silently waiting for something, or rather, someone. The booth offered them a perfect view of the room, and they weren't wasting a second of it. They were watching, waiting for the moment when everything would change. And then, he walked in. Lil Scrappy entered the club like he owned the place, and as soon as he stepped through the door, the energy shifted. His signature swagger, bright smile, and confidence were unmistakable. Surrounded by his friends, he was instantly the center of attention, hugging fans, taking selfies, laughing loudly, and having the time of his life. Scrappy's energy was contagious, and it wasn't long before everyone in the room gravitated toward him.
I'm frustrated, irritated, man.
But while most were drawn to the fun, a few people including Kirk and Jock weren't focused on his good vibes. They were focused on him, studying every move he made. Their eyes didn't leave him for a second. The tension in the air was palpable, though not everyone could sense it. Some might have felt the shift in energy, but the real action was happening in that dimly lit VIP booth. People nearby began to notice that something wasn't quite right. One dancer paused, mid-twerk, to glance over at the booth. A few security guards subtly adjusted their positions. Even the DJ, who had been transitioning between tracks, slowed down as if sensing the building tension. Kirk and Jock weren't just watching for fun, they were waiting for something, and they weren't going to miss their chance. A few moments later, Kirk leaned in again, speaking in a low voice. Jock nodded and checked his phone before scanning the crowd. It was clear the playful mood had shifted. Jock motioned with his chin towards Scrappy's section, and Kirk followed his movement with narrowed eyes. Neither of them was smiling. Neither of them was sipping their drinks. They were just watching, waiting for the right moment. A waitress arrived with another round of drinks but stopped short as she approached their booth. The look on their faces made her hesitate, and she carefully set the drinks down without saying a word. She, too, could feel the tension hanging in the air. Phones weren't out yet, but the people around them were starting to sense something was about to happen. The calm before the storm was thick, and everyone knew the situation was building towards something big. Scrappy, still laughing with his friends, was unaware that the moment of reckoning was near. Then, one of Scrappy's friends whispered something in his ear. Scrappy turned his head, meeting the eyes of Kirk and Jock. The exchange lasted long enough to let the tension linger. It wasn't just a glance, it was a moment of recognition. Scrappy now knew he wasn't just being watched, he was being waited on. It didn't take long for things to escalate. Kirk and Jock stood up from their booth, and as they started making their way through the crowd, the energy shifted. People parted ways to let them pass. There were no loud words yet, no confrontation, but the way they moved commanded attention. It wasn't a coincidence. They were heading straight for Scrappy. Scrappy, still near the center of the dance floor, spotted them coming. As they got closer, he turned toward them and casually asked, "What's up?" His tone wasn't confrontational, it was more curious, maybe even a little cautious. He didn't know what was coming, but he was trying to keep things cool. However, Jock didn't smile, and Kirk didn't return the friendly gesture. Instead, they moved closer, standing so close that personal space was completely ignored. The music, which had been blasting in the background, suddenly felt too loud for the tension that was building in the air. What started as an exchange of words quickly spiraled into something more serious. Jock leaned in first, speaking low but with clear intention. "We heard what you said, Scrap. You've been talking too much." His words were sharp, and Scrappy furrowed his brow, confused. "What are you talking about?" Scrappy asked, his voice now tinged with confusion. Before he could get an answer, Kirk spoke up, his voice filled with accusation. "You know exactly what I'm talking about. Playing both sides, smiling in our faces, and then running your mouth behind our backs." The weight of the moment settled in. Kirk pulled out his phone and held it up like evidence. "You think this isn't going to come back to you? We got the receipts." Jock jumped in again, his tone even more direct. "You were at the studio last week, talking crazy. Do you think people are loyal to you? They sent us everything."
I have nobody if y'all ain't with me. I don't have nobody.
Okay.
Like all that talking, cuz I need y'all to show me, cuz, for real.
Scrappy's eyes flicked from the phone to Kirk, his face still a mix of confusion and anger. "That's not even the whole conversation," he shot back, his voice rising a bit. "Y'all taking things out of context. I said what I said, but it wasn't how you're trying to twist it." But Kirk wasn't backing down. "Context or not, you said it. Period." With that, the floodgates opened. The heat wasn't just verbal anymore, it was personal. Scrappy's face turned red, and his usual calm composure crumbled. "Y'all acting like I'm some snake," he shouted, his voice now full of emotion. "But I've been real with both of y'all more times than I can count." Scrappy wasn't afraid of the receipts. "You think I'm scared of receipts? Half of y'all fake anyway. Ain't nobody loyal out here anymore." The volume of the argument increased, and people who had been watching from the sidelines began to take notice. Phones started to come out, and the DJ lowered the music slightly, sensing the shift in energy. Security guards positioned themselves at the edges of the dance floor, preparing for anything. Scrappy pointed at Kirk's phone. "You want to show people that? Show the rest too. Show what you said. Show how y'all were talking slick about me when I wasn't around." The crowd was now fully engaged, not just in the words but in the battle of pride, loyalty, and respect that was unfolding before them. It wasn't just about who said what anymore. It was about something deeper, something that couldn't be undone. Jock stepped forward, but Kirk held him back. "Let him talk," he said, motioning for Scrappy to continue. But Scrappy wasn't calming down. "I held y'all down, and now, because of a few words out of context, y'all ready to burn it all?" His voice was full of anger and frustration. The crowd had formed a tight circle around the three men, and everyone could feel the heat rising. It was no longer just about the argument, it was about trust, loyalty, and respect being tested right there, under the flashing lights of the club. Scrappy wasn't backing down, and neither was Jock. As the shouting reached a boiling point, Scrappy closed the gap between them, stepping forward until their chests were nearly touching. Jock didn't move. Kirk, however, saw where this was headed and stepped closer to Jock, standing shoulder to shoulder with him. Kirk leaned in, his voice low but stern. "You might want to fall back before this gets real." Scrappy was done with warnings. "It already is real," he snapped, and without another word, Jock nudged forward just enough to provoke a response. That was all it took. Scrappy pushed Jock hard in the chest. Jock stumbled back, bumping into someone nearby. A drink flew from a table, shattering as it hit the floor. The music didn't even have time to cut before the chaos erupted. Kirk lunged forward, and suddenly, everything went wild. Scrappy's crew rushed to pull him back, but their actions only triggered more pushing and shoving. A second guy from Scrappy's team tried to step in, but he slipped, knocking into another VIP guest. Drinks spilled, chairs tipped over, and the crowd that had once been watching silently was now part of the chaos. Screams filled the air, and phones shot up, recording everything. The nightclub, once filled with dancing and laughter, was now a frenzy of shouts and flashing lights. Security guards rushed in from every direction, pulling the men apart with brute force. The fight wasn't over yet. One of Scrappy's guys pushed a security guard off, shouting, "Don't touch him like that." The bouncers doubled their efforts, moving the group apart, trying to keep the situation under control. As the chaos began to subside, staff members moved in, clearing away broken glass and trying to protect other guests. The DJ, sensing the need for a shift, killed the music entirely, and for a moment, there was complete silence except for the shouting from the front of the club. Kirk and Jock were escorted out through a side entrance, surrounded by security guards. There were no words, just angry stares and clenched fists. Scrappy's crew was pulled toward the opposite end of the club, with one man gripping Scrappy's arm and whispering, "Let it go, not here." Outside, people who had witnessed the entire scene were quick to upload clips from different angles. "Yo, that's Scrappy and Jock fighting," one person wrote, and the video quickly went viral. The fight may have lasted only seconds, but the aftermath was going to last much longer. Kirk and Jock had business ties across Atlanta, while Scrappy had collaborations and public appearances lined up. This public confrontation was more than just an ego clash. It had real consequences. Lost endorsements, broken alliances, and the threat of legal action if someone decided to press charges. This wasn't just a fight, it was a turning point. What do you think of this whole situation? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more updates.